For centuries, the vast lands of China had been ruled by imperial dynasties, their emperors presiding over a complex civilization rich in tradition and achievement. Yet, as the 20th century dawned, the centuries-old system began to unravel. The weight of foreign invasions, internal corruption, and waves of social unrest pressed inexorably upon the last dynasty, the Qing. By 1911, revolution swept the land. The imperial order collapsed, and in the chaos that followed, China splintered into regions controlled by warlords, while foreign powers vied for influence. From the ashes of this old world, new leaders and visions would arise, each determined to shape the destiny of a fractured nation. In the coastal province of Zhejiang, in the small market town of Fenghua, a boy named Chiang Kai-shek was born on October 31, 1887. His father, a salt merchant, provided the family with modest means, but it was the turbulent environment that defined Chiang's youth. Early on, he saw both the promise and peril facing a changing China. As a young adult, Chiang attended the Baoding Military Academy, one of the finest in China at the time. Seeking knowledge of modern military science, he journeyed to Japan, where he underwent further training and served in the Japanese Imperial Army. Here, Chiang learned firsthand the advantages of discipline, reform, and technical modernization, lessons that would inform his later campaigns. The revolution against the Qing in 1911 called Chiang back to China. The successful overthrow of the last emperor promised a republic and the dawn of a new age. Yet, true unity remained elusive. Competing warlords carved out fiefdoms, and foreign interference, especially in treaty ports and territories, kept the fledgling republic weak and divided. In 1918, Chiang's life took a decisive turn when he joined forces with Dr. Sun Yat-sen, the visionary founder of the Kuomintang. Sun's dream, a modern, unified, democratic China, sparked hope in many. He laid out a plan for national reconstruction, first securing the country militarily, then guiding its political development, and finally, establishing a constitutional government. Chiang admired Sun's determination and quickly rose in prominence, gaining the trust of the movement's inner circle. Recognizing Chiang's leadership qualities, Sun Yat-sen appointed him commandant of the newly established Whampoa Military Academy in 1924. Here, Chiang would shape a generation of officers, many of whom would play pivotal roles in China's coming struggle. Whampoa became more than just a school. It was the crucible in which the nationalist army was forged. Tragedy struck in 1925, when Sun Yat-sen succumbed to cancer. His death left a power vacuum in the Kuomintang. Chiang, with his control of the military and growing reputation, emerged from the ensuing intrigue and infighting as the de facto leader of the party and head of the National Revolutionary Army. Chiang lost little time consolidating his authority. In 1926, he launched the Northern Expedition, a bold campaign to defeat the warlords and reunify the country under one government. The advance started in the southern city of Guangzhou, with nationalist soldiers pushing northward, gathering momentum with each victory, city after city falling under their control. Chiang's army benefited from Soviet advisors and a tenuous alliance with the young Chinese Communist Party, united at this stage against the mutual threat of warlordism. However, Chiang's suspicions about communist intentions grew as the campaign approached Shanghai. In the notorious events of April 1927, remembered as the Shanghai Massacre, he ordered a violent purge of communists and suspected sympathizers in the city. Hundreds, perhaps thousands, were killed or arrested overnight. This watershed moment shattered the fragile alliance between nationalists and communists. The stage was set for decades of bitter civil war. In 1928, Chiang declared his campaign a success. The major warlords had either submitted or been defeated. He established a new capital at Nanjing and began forging a modern Chinese state. Western journalists, taking note of his authority, began calling him the Generalissimo. The next decade, known as the Nanjing Decade, saw ambitious efforts to modernize China. Chiang spearheaded infrastructure projects, building roads, railways, and factories. Educational reforms sprouted, and a centralized banking system was laid down, bringing hope that China might finally match the industrial powers of the West and Japan. It was also during this period that Chiang married Sung Mei-ling, a well-educated woman from the influential Sung family. Her impeccable English, Christian faith, and personal charm would make her a persuasive voice overseas, particularly in the United States, during China's travails in the coming World War. Yet, the challenges facing Chiang's government were immense. Vast swaths of rural China remained beyond nationalist control. The Communist Party, led increasingly by Mao Zedong, retreated into the countryside, rallying peasants to their cause and perfecting guerrilla tactics. From 1930 to 1934, Chiang led successive encirclement campaigns against the communist bases. Despite initially gaining the upper hand, the communists evaded destruction by undertaking the Long March, a legendary 6,000-mile trek to new strongholds in the north. Of the tens of thousands who began the journey, only a handful survived, but their legend inspired future generations. While civil conflict raged, a more existential threat loomed. In 1931, Japanese forces seized Manchuria, exploiting China's disunity. Chiang, believing that internal enemies posed a greater danger than external ones, initially held back from full-scale confrontation with the Japanese. This controversial stance led to fierce criticism from patriotic Chinese everywhere. Fate, however, had other plans. In 1936, while visiting Xi'an to plan yet another anti-communist offensive, Chiang was kidnapped by generals who demanded that he turn his armies against the Japanese instead. After anxious negotiations and 2 weeks in captivity, Chiang relented, agreeing to form a second united front with the communists against Japan. In 1937, all-out war with Japan erupted. Chiang's government was forced into a brutal, grinding conflict, suffering devastating losses as Japanese troops swept through eastern and northern China. Major cities fell: Beijing, Shanghai, Nanjing, each bringing its own tragedy. Nowhere was the suffering greater than in Nanjing, where Japanese forces perpetrated one of the war's most infamous atrocities, the Nanjing Massacre, in which hundreds of thousands of civilians perished. Retreating to the makeshift wartime capitals of Wuhan and later Chongqing, Chiang continued to resist. His strategy: trading territory for time, hoping that protracted resistance would exhaust Japan and draw support from abroad. As World War II went global, Chiang became a key figure among the Allied leaders. At the 1943 Cairo Conference, Chiang met with Roosevelt and Churchill, securing promises that Chinese territories occupied by Japan would be restored after victory. With Japan's defeat in 1945, peace proved fleeting. The fragile alliance between nationalists and communists disintegrated, and civil war resumed with greater intensity. American aid flowed to Chiang's side, but rampant corruption, inflation, and low morale sapped the nationalists' strength. Meanwhile, Mao's forces, buoyed by land reform and popular support among peasants, pressed their advantage. One by one, if you enjoyed this historical journey, please support our channel by liking, subscribing, and sharing your thoughts in the comments. Don't miss our upcoming content.